The following is intended for mature audiences. Screamers of the Society. Before getting into the episode, per usual, take a listen to this submission that was sent my way. I do fitness content online and built a decent following, enough to make money from coaching and meal plans. Eventually, I started doing more adult-leaning stuff because people kept asking for it. It wasn't something I planned on, it just kind of happened. And that turned into an OnlyFans, and then that turned into boyfriend experience services with tiers. Basically, I was giving phone calls, I was doing FaceTimes or texting, going on dates, and hanging out. Just basically acting like someone's boyfriend for whatever amount of time that they paid for. Most of the people who bought the higher tiers were harmless, most likely lonely or whatever, but there was this one guy. And the thing that threw me off was he wasn't older or creepy looking. He was around my age, super nice, like nothing that set off any red flags. He'd buy sessions back to back and tried to book me for weeks, never giving any of my other clients a chance. He never said anything crazy, but something about the way he talked and remembered things just felt off. I started feeling weird about it and stopped accepting his bookings. I just sent out this generic message saying I wasn't offering that tier anymore, then moved on. A few days later, someone started spamming every single one of my posts on Instagram. It was a new account with no profile picture, of course. They didn't have any posts, and the same happened on all my other social media platforms, including the OnlyFans, where I received DMs with eye and tongue emojis. And I know that doesn't sound like much, but maybe it was the timing of everything. The creepiest incident was when my dog wouldn't stop growling at my front door, which then led to someone who started knocking obnoxiously, like they wouldn't stop. I checked the porch camera and saw someone standing there with a large bucket hat. I couldn't really make out their face since they had it pulled so low, but it was definitely a male. I just stayed quiet and watched like an idiot. Why I did that, I have no idea. Besides, they weren't really doing anything, just knocking. They were there for a few minutes and then they would end up walking off. Then one morning at the gym, I went to the bathroom between sets. I was washing my hands when the door opened, and that's when that guy walked in. He had the nerve to act like he was shocked to see me. He acted all friendly and all surprised, like I hadn't just cut contact and like he didn't know exactly where I had worked out, which I have to admit was probably my fault because I post gym selfies with the gym location tagged, which would also make sense if he was the bucket hat guy at my door. He could have followed me home from the gym one day, I don't know. And the way he acted, like running into me was some accident, it just felt more creepy than if he'd admitted he'd followed me there. I left so fast after, lol. I haven't really seen him around anywhere, thank God, but I hate that one person made something that used to be so fun feel so unsafe. Welcome to a world where darkness and mystery converge. Navigate the depths of horror and true crime and join a society beyond the ordinary, where buzzworthy topics, paranormal tales, and listener-submitted experiences blend into a realm of the unknown. You have crossed into a place where the unusual and the terrifying are just the beginning. My name is Ralph Anthony, and welcome to the Scream Society podcast. Hello, Screamers. Welcome into another edition of this rowdy podcast, straight from the fiery pits of hell. In the dawn of Netflix wanting to own every one of its competitors, Quentin Tarantino shading Matthew Lillard, and discovering that if you flip MM to WW, that translates to Wicked Witch. I hope you all are doing all right out there. Also, happy holidays. And for the record, Matthew Lillard is a great actor. Live her alone, Quentin. So, does anybody else watch random shit on YouTube? And when I say random, I mean random. Because I found myself watching old Christmas commercials from the 90s the other night, and I was so invested. Broken record over here, but everything just seemed more magical back then. Like it's really fucking crazy because I think social media and smartphones have just really ruined a lot of the fun. Phones and technology are also something we heavily rely on, so I can't hate too much. I mean, most of my research for this podcast is done on my smartphone, but anyway, apparently I've been too busy watching old Christmas commercials rather than putting out episodes, apparently. Now look, I have quite the variety of topics and cases this episode, so let's not waste too much time rambling. Let's get into a couple sinister subjects, shall we? Madam Marble, flip it around, Wicked Witch. Michelle Yeoh has become even more iconic while on the press tour for the sequel to the film adaptation of Wicked, titled Wicked for Good, as we all know. And while I would like to focus on that, apparently y'all want to focus on the cast's bodies. Is this 2004? Now, clearly, by now, most of us have heard of this alleged wicked curse. The conversation around it has gotten loud, messy, and honestly kind of heartbreaking. Not because people are noticing changes. That happens, right? Like that's human. But because of how quickly it turned into this just avalanche of assumptions, accusations, and even diagnosis. And I didn't want to talk about this, but I just think we're watching something unfold in real time that really shows how poorly our culture handles sensitive topics, especially when those topics involve bodies and trauma and mental health. So just to kind of give you some backstory, here's what kicked everything off. Photos started circulating of the Wicked cast: Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo, Michelle Yeoh. Comments blew up saying that they looked sickly, with others posting side-by-side photos and pointing out bones and angles, shadows, and just all of these things online. Some were genuinely worried, and you can feel that concern. But a lot of the conversation quickly slid into really extreme opinions, comparing their looks to dying relatives, accusing them of competitive anorexia. Like, what the fuck? Some are also saying that something sinister must have been happening on the set of Wicked. People claim that this wasn't normal and were insisting that someone needed to step in because their bodies looked different than before they started filming. So with that, I understand why people have reactions when someone's appearance changes dramatically. We're human. We notice things. But what we don't know are their medical histories. Now, take Ariana, for example. Like, this isn't just some celebrity who woke up one day and changed her hair and her body. And full disclaimer, I am not the biggest Ariana Grande fan. Like, I was one of those gays who, when she first came out, I wasn't feeling her. I was like, what is this? And to this day, like, I still haven't really vibed with her, like, actual, like, pop music. She's had a few good songs that I've vibed to. That's fine, but I'm not the biggest stan. So anyway, Ariana Grande is someone who has lived through an unimaginably traumatic event. Do we remember the Manchester bombing, where 22 people, many of them children, were killed at her very own concert? That moment just reshaped her entire life, her career, and she has been open about the PTSD she still carries from it, and this press tour has triggered a lot of that again. At the Singapore premiere for Wicked for Good, a man literally jumped a barrier and grabbed her. Not in a cute, big fan way, in this coordinated, pre-planned stunt by someone with a history of targeting celebrities. Like, her bodyguards and Cynthia Erivo had to peel him off of her. And I was like, yes, when I seen Cynthia not backing down. Like, Cynthia is a real one. And I know there are, like, a lot of insensitive jokes out there about it. And I've seen videos. There's this TikTok where it's like every instance where Cynthia Erivo appears to be protecting or shielding Ariana Grande to some extent, and like there's scenes where it's just Ariana Grande and Cynthia's out of focus, but you can see like her long nails and her hands like wrap around her, like pushing her and pulling her away. And It's funny. It's like we're in kindergarten again. Remember when certain kids in class wouldn't shut the fuck up, so they ruined a recess for everyone else? Like, that's honestly what it feels like with a lot of things going on these days. And if y'all keep attacking these celebrities, they aren't going to attend these interactive events anymore. They aren't going to do meet and greets. Like, why are y'all pulling on Billie Eilish? Why are y'all pinching Lady Gaga? Now, Cynthia Erivo and Michelle Yeoh have been emotional throughout the press tour as well. They've all said the entire cast cried almost every day while filming, sometimes from stress, sometimes from relief, sometimes from finally making it through the post-strike chaos. Like, this wasn't some magical, fluffy movie making process. Like, I'm sure it wasn't as bad as the original Wizard of Oz, but it was long, exhausting, emotionally heavy, and filled with pressure from probably every direction. And that's why this whole conversation online feels so off and just not okay. Not because people care. Caring is good, right? Concern is human. But the way we talk about bodies, especially women's bodies, is still so careless. We go from they look so skinny to they must have an eating disorder to what dark thing is happening behind the scenes to, oh my God, she's gained so much weight, or just all this shit, right? And like, I'm not making excuses or I'm not denying the possibility of anything going on. I mean, there is so much to consider here. And we all know by now, the industry is this very dark and, my favorite word, demonic place. I'm not a religious person here, but I know there is some demonic shit going on. Hello, Epstein. Now, do I think they look thinner than they did in film or at the first press tour? Yes, but I don't think commenting and adding more speculation really helps anything here. I mean, it's a really slippery slope to navigate. I don't think there is a right way to approach or help if needed, but just saying negative shit, I know for a fact does nothing. And I've been honest myself about my experience, how I've had many issues with my body, and I still do. When I was extremely overweight, all I heard was, you're fat, you're fat, you're fat. Then when I got to a weight that I felt was better for me, where I felt better mentally and physically, I heard, oh, you're too skinny. You're too skinny. You look like a... Trigger warning. I was once told that I look like I'm a Holocaust survivor. Like, who says that to people? And in retrospect, I did go a little overboard with the weight loss, but that was for me to figure out on my own. Which then I put on some weight, and guess what? I heard you've gained weight, you've gained weight, you've gained weight. And it's really wild how much other people really don't realize what they say can truly affect someone for years, for a lifetime. So I'm definitely focusing more on what's best for me and not what I'm hearing. And thankfully, I'm surrounded by people who are positive now. And it's not about walking on eggshells, because fuck that. But it's just, for me, it's a respect thing. Like, I don't want people walking around eggshells, like watching what they say. Like, I'm going to get so offended. It's just respect. And it's not hard. And for the record, Wicked Part 1 is the way better half of the film adaptations. Let's move on. We need to talk about this very demonic Jeffrey Epstein fiasco. A, because I have had some thoughts for the longest time and have been waiting for more to come out. And B, because the newest photos and footage that came out from his island have myself and so many others just pretty much horrified all over again. And with the context, it makes it even worse. Now, for anyone who hasn't followed the whole Jeffrey Epstein saga from the beginning, Jeffrey Epstein started out in New York finance in the 1970s, and somehow through charm, connection, and a whole lot of mystery managed to rise into circles way above where he started. He built a kind of persona around himself, the brilliant, eccentric money manager who only worked with billionaires and political elites. And the reality, as we know now, was a lot darker. Epstein wasn't just a wealthy financier, he was a convicted sex offender. And according to survivors, to lawyers and investigators, he used his wealth and access to groom, exploit, and traffic underage girls for years. His first major arrest happened back in 2006, but he got what many people consider a shockingly lenient deal in 2008. A deal that's still controversial to this day because he served 13 months in a private wing of a county jail where he was allowed to leave for work release for up to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. And like, what? But even after that conviction, he kept moving through circles of powerful people as like nothing ever happened, right? Like life's good. Now, it wasn't until 2019 that federal prosecutors finally charged him again with sex trafficking minors. Disgusting. That time, the evidence was overwhelming. Survivors spoke out publicly. The press dug deep, and there was this sense, like, finally, that something was going to be done. Something was going to stick. But then, before his case could go to trial, Jeffrey Epstein was found hanging in his federal detention cell in New York in August 2019. The official ruling was a suicide, but the backlash was immediate. People questioned the circumstances, the lack of working cameras, the guards who reportedly slept through checks, the fact that he had been taken off suicide watch just days earlier. Now, whether people believe the official explanation or not, the one thing almost everyone agrees on is that his death pretty much cut off any sort of hope or answers. Answers survivors have spent decades trying to get, right? And because of that, Epstein's private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands, Little St. James, became this just place of unanswered questions. It's like survivors had testified that abuse had happened there. Pilots, house managers, and visitors had all described strange routines and unusual security. But the actual rooms, the actual environment stayed pretty much a mystery. For years, we only had drone footage, satellite photos, and survivor descriptions. It wasn't enough to see the world that Epstein had created. That finally changed in December of 2025 when Congress released more than 150 never-before-seen photos and video clips from inside the island as part of the Epstein Files Transparency Act. And we've been on this subject for a while now, right? Like, just release the files already. Like, stop playing. So the law basically forced the Justice Department to release everything, all unclassified Epstein-related documents by December 19th, 2025. And as part of that first release, investigators published the visuals. These weren't glamour shots or real estate scans. These were raw, alleged, unedited images taken by investigators walking room to room. And at first glance, the footage looks surprisingly normal. You see sunlit bedrooms, big kitchens, pools overlooking the ocean. Gorgeous, right? The kind of layout you'd expect from someone with an obscene amount of money. And it almost feels intentionally ordinary. Like the island was trying to convince you that the rumors were just exaggerated or made up. Now, one of the rooms everyone is talking about is this clinical space that feels more like a medical office than part of this tropical estate. And in this room, sitting dead center in the middle, is a full-on professional dentist chair. Like, for what? Were they installing veneers here? And more creepily and culty, if you ask me, all around the walls are these latex masks. They're like full head masks of men's faces. And in my head, I'm just thinking, oh my God, like this is some eyes wide shut cult shit. And some theories here. One former FBI special agent, Jennifer Coffindaffer, theorized that the masks could have been used by Epstein's associates to hide their faces during these alleged sex crimes, which kind of checks out. like hide their identity so the victims don't exactly know who is doing this to them. Another theory even points to Epstein's last girlfriend, Karina Shuliak, who was a dentist who shared an office with him. So the presence of the dental chair and potentially the masks could be connected to her profession in some way. I don't know why the need for the masks though. Or maybe even some ritualistic Bohemian Grove type of shit was going on there, some ceremonies, like, I don't know. I'm telling you, nothing seems far-fetched with these people, and I know there is some truly dark shit going on. So going through other pictures, there's this other room with a huge blackboard, and across the board are words like power, deception, intellectual, political, truth. Some of the writing is partially erased, and unsurprisingly, other things that were written have been redacted in the photos. Other released photos were of steam rooms. One of them is filled with stacks of pillows, baby lotion, and way too many towels for whatever reason. None of it is illegal on its own, but again, like I said, in the context of these survivors' testimonies, it makes these photos just really disturbing and more creepy. Another image shows this landline phone with buttons labeled for speed dial. Some names are visible and some are blurred out. And I wonder whose names have been blurred out. Congress is, I'm being so petty. I am to the point where these people and what they're about and what they're telling their followers and all of it, it's so fake. As I was saying, so Congress is still preparing to drop the full set of documents, banking records, flight data, communications, all the material that might actually name names or outline connections that have been kept secret for decades. But even with the drop of files, there are obstacles to the files being shared with the US public on the deadline date. For one, the bill said that the Justice Department can hold back any documents that jeopardize an active federal investigation or ongoing prosecution, provided that such withholding is narrowly tailored and temporary, whatever the fuck that means. I'm always going to be real here, but it is pretty frustrating because every time something new comes out about Epstein, it feels like we're only seeing what someone chose to let us see, right? Like these photos, these videos, even the documents Congress says that they are releasing, it feels curated. Like we're being shown just enough to say, like, see, we're being transparent here, and like without actually opening the full door. Why do things have to be blacked out? Why are we running in circles? Just all this. The government has had Epstein's evidence for years. Decades in some cases. Agencies knew about him long before the public did. Prosecutors, intelligence groups, entire departments interacted with his world in ways we still don't fully understand. And now, suddenly there's this big push for transparency, but only on their timeline and only under their conditions. And only after everyone who might have been directly confronted by Epstein's testimony is conveniently out of reach because he died before the trial. I don't know. I guess we will see what comes out, and whatever else does, I'll be watching and I'll be talking about it here. Let's do a 911 call. Okay, we need to talk about a case that just had a very unfortunate outcome. And I recall this going viral, especially in the Fresno, Central Valley, California area, the area I'm originally from. And let me set the stage for some context here. It's July 2017 in Stockton, California. If you're not familiar with Stockton, it's a spread out city in the Central Valley, a mix of farmland on the outskirts, busy neighborhoods, highways, and long rural roads that teenagers love to drive down. A girl named Obdulia Sanchez is 18 at the time. She's been in and out of trouble. Not violent crime trouble, but the type of instability that a lot of kids fall into, running away from home, substance abuse, probation violations, and a complicated relationship with her family and foster care system. But the big thing people notice about Obdulia is that she's on her phone. She's always live streaming, always posting. Friends said she recorded everything, not because she wanted clout, but because it was her way of letting people into her little world, even when she felt isolated or misunderstood. And that's the mindset she's in on July 21st, 2017. She has her younger sister, Jacqueline, only 14 years old, and another teen girl is in the backseat. They're going on a drive, there's music on, and the phone is out streaming. Now, the car is a white Buick. They're out on a long open stretch of country road near Los Baños. And it's always crazy to me covering cases with familiar areas. Like, I can't tell you how many road trips I've been on where I've made pit stops in Los Baños. Anyway, so back to Obdulia. On the live stream, Obdulia seems to be lip syncing, throwing up some sort of hand signs, talking to the camera. Then Obdulia drifts. The right tire hits the gravel shoulder. The car jerks, and instead of slowing down, the wheel overcorrects. The Buick crosses the road, hits a barbed wire fence, and flips into a dry field. Inside the car, Jacqueline, who wasn't wearing a seatbelt, is thrown from the back seat. And the live stream didn't stop. The phone doesn't drop or break enough to end the footage. It keeps broadcasting to whoever was watching. And what follows is probably one of the most shocking things people had ever seen on Instagram at that time, because Obdulia picks up the phone and begins talking to the camera. She starts filming her sister, who appears to have this really brutal head wound. I remember it as looking like a large hole in her head. Obdulia is talking to the camera and saying things like she killed her sister, apologizing to her and saying that she understands if she goes to prison. She understands that. And she was definitely not sober. Now, many 911 calls eventually were called in, but the first call was from Obdulia, who then hangs up on the 911 dispatcher. But the dispatcher calls back and, well, take a listen to both of them.
Jacqueline! Jacqueline! 911? Jacqueline! Hello? Do you have an emergency? Hello? Can you come pick up my sister? We're dead. Sweetie, I don't know where I'm located. I just know this is gonna die if you don't come up. Well, I gotta know where you're located me right now. Wake the up! Wake up! Okay, listen to me. I need to know what you see around you so that way I can send someone out to help you. So with your... Alright, go ahead. What do you see? Hello? Ma'am, did you just call 911 about an accident? Where? What do you mean, where? Yeah, come over here. My sister's dying. Please come over here. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm in Los Baños. Where are you? Wake up! I don't care where I'm at. Well, then how do you expect me to find you? I don't know. You're the government. You should know how to find me.
Okay, what is going on? Is it a car accident?
Yeah, there's a car overturned.
It's overturned?
Yes, it's over here on Henry Miller Road.
They ran off the road, went through a fence, and drove. And one person has the whole head of their head is opened.
Okay.
You can see, I don't think she's breathing.
And when I first heard this, it was pretty hard for me to listen to because... I don't know, maybe it's because I know people who talk like this, and I don't mean to laugh, but it felt so familiar. Like I went to school with someone who was like Obdulia, and the calling her sister a bitch, like saying to come pick this bitch up, and just, it was really uncomfortable to listen to. On the other side, I could also kind of understand maybe that's how Obdulia handled trauma or how she reacts while she's in shock. She was also under the influence, as she mentioned. Now, when officers arrive, they immediately detain Obdulia, not because they assume malice, but because they need to control the scene. They need to understand whether she's under the influence, whether there are substances involved, whether she's injured, and then she starts screaming, trying to go back to be with her sister. She is now saying things to the officers like, how would you feel if that were your sister? To let her go say goodbye and to not cover her body. She also mentions that it was going to be her sister's birthday the following day. Now, the surviving friend passenger is also found with some injuries, but is alive. Jacqueline is the only one who doesn't make it. Cut to the trial, which became heavily covered in media because the video was so widely seen and spread. And in early 2018, Obdulia pleads no contest and receives over 6 years in prison. At her sentencing hearing, she tells the court, "Why did God choose me to be the older sister? I can't even do my job right. I had so much potential, but I threw it all away because I wanted to look cool and drive carelessly." Now, she serves only about 2 years before being released on good behavior, but after her release, the hope was that maybe this could have been a wake-up call. Maybe she'll rebuild, stay out of trouble, honor her sister, and turn things around. But unfortunately, the truth is, Obdulia continues to get arrested with weapon charges, police chases, probation violations. It's like she's stuck in this spiral that I think started way before the crash and maybe only got worse over time. And it only gets crazier from there because Obdulia was reportedly killed in a drive-by shooting in Stockton, California on December 2nd of this year, 2025. And as of now, authorities have not publicly confirmed a motive for the shooting, and it's also unclear whether this shooting is connected to any broader incident or choices that Obdulia had made. And I'm nosy. I always read comments under articles, and the ones under this article about Obdulia's death were a little wild. Some people said good, others said a life for a life, karma even. I wouldn't say anything like that, but I would say that I believe that the universe does work in very mysterious ways. Let's take a break. From the blood-soaked depths of late-night horror comes a collection so shocking, so scandalous, it'll make your wardrobe scream. Want my face on your chest? Or maybe you just want to rep the cult, the logo, the legend, the Scream Society? Don't just listen to the nightmare, wear it, rep it, live it. Get it now before it gets you. Head to scream-society.printify.me and rep Scream Society merch. Welcome back, and welcome into Terrifying But True, the segment where I choose one random true crime, dark history, or paranormal case and do a deep dive on it. This episode, I'm diving into the case of the Christmas tree lady, and to me is one of the most quietly heartbreaking, eerie, and long unsolved cases I've come across. And it starts in a cemetery a week before Christmas with a woman no one could name for more than 25 years. Joyce Marilyn Myers Summers, better known for decades as the Christmas Tree Lady, is one of those stories that starts out almost ordinary. Farm girl, smart student, moves to the big city, and slowly spirals into something layered, something lonely, and full of unresolved pain. So let's get into the facts. And as usual with cases like these, I have to issue a trigger warning as this does dive into struggles with mental health, which, as we all know, was something nobody really focused on back then. Let's get into it. When the unthinkable becomes reality, we find ourselves questioning everything, as some stories are too terrifying but true. Before she was Christmas Tree Lady, Joyce was born July 20th, 1927 in Davenport, Iowa. Classic Midwestern upbringing. She had the farm life, she had 4 siblings, and was the oldest of 3 girls and 2 boys, and had both parents, Arthur and Margaret Meyer. So, on the outside, as it always does, and to everyone else around, Joyce's upbringing seemed normal. But Joyce's lived experience was actually a lot darker. Joyce was smart, she was capable, and she eventually made it to Iowa State University. But Joyce was always someone who wanted more. More life, more career, more meaning. So she left Iowa and went to Los Angeles, living with an aunt while working at 17 magazine. Do they even still print physical copies of 17? I haven't been down at Magazine Island in a while. It just seems like everything is going digital now, unfortunately. Now, working at 17 magazine sounds glamorous, right? Like you had this young woman in a big city working for a teen fashion magazine, but within a few years, she would end up walking away. By the 1950s, she was teaching second grade at a Catholic elementary school. And this was when something had shifted with her. Around this time, Joyce started seeing a psychiatrist, and the certain style of therapy that this psychiatrist practiced was controversial. Let's just call it that, because he encouraged patients to blame their families, especially their mothers, for anything and everything that had gone wrong in their lives, and it deeply affected Joyce. She slowly grew detached, suspicious, and eventually outright alienated from her own family. And I'm going to retract my describing of the psychiatrist as controversial and change it to irresponsible. Now, in the 1960s, Joyce's mother flew out to visit her in California, hoping to repair things. But what happened instead was this 24-hour confrontation session, basically a nonstop emotional battle. And for Joyce, that visit didn't repair anything. It made the distance between them grow even more. So as time went on, Joyce later moved to Seattle, where she married James E. Summers. She didn't tell her family anything about it, not even about the engagement. Of course, not the wedding. Nothing. The couple never had kids, and the marriage eventually fell apart. By 1977, they had divorced. After the divorce, she moved again, this time to a trailer park in Tucson, Arizona. Her siblings said she was unhappy, she was isolated, and she was becoming harder to reach emotionally. Now, in the early 1980s, all four siblings traveled to Tucson to visit her. Joyce asked them to help her build a home, and when they declined, maybe they couldn't afford it, maybe they didn't understand how much that request meant to her, but Joyce was devastated. That visit would end up being the very last time that any of them would ever see her again. After she disappeared from their lives, her family suspected that she had joined a cult. They even hired a private investigator to find her. And while leads did come in, nothing really ever panned out. In the early 1990s, her brother Larry went back to Tucson hoping to find her, but instead, he found an abandoned trailer. He didn't find any clues that led to Joyce, but he did find 4 copies of a book she'd written herself. It was titled The Target Child. Now, this wasn't a published novel. This wasn't something a bookstore ever carried. This was most likely self-published in the most old school way possible. And keep in mind, we're talking late 80s, early 90s here. There's no Amazon self-publishing, no upload your manuscript. This book allegedly contained Joyce's experience while growing up, which contained some form of abuse, most likely at the hands of her parents, which is all alleged and was really hard to track down. Remember, there were only 4 copies of this book. Those 4 copies were probably intentional. It wasn't meant for us. It wasn't meant for publishing. It wasn't even meant to be discovered by strangers years later. And I saw this theory online that it was probably written for her 4 siblings. 4 copies, 4 siblings, and that was it. After that, Joyce just disappeared. Now jump to a cold December morning in Annandale, Virginia, December 18th, 1996. A grounds worker at Annandale Cemetery was making his rounds when he noticed something unusual near the section where infants and children are buried. There, lying peacefully on a blanket, was the body of a woman. Next to her was a small 8-inch Christmas tree, a cassette player and headphones, a backpack, some money, and a handwritten burial instruction letter that said, "Deceased by own hand, Prefer no autopsy. Please order cremation with funds provided. Thank you. Signed, Jane Doe. There's something about that gave me chills. Now, the biggest question at the time that they couldn't answer was, who was she? There was no ID, there was no fingerprints in any system, there was really nothing. Investigators estimated that she was between 50 and 70 years old, around 5 feet, Caucasian, neatly dressed, and calm looking, whatever that means. They also described her as someone who didn't seem like a transient or unnoticed. They searched missing persons reports, both local and national, and nothing matched. Witnesses didn't even come forward. Nobody recognized her face. She became known simply as the Christmas Tree Lady, a quiet mystery in a children's cemetery. Now, in the year 2000, police would release a colorized version of the sketch to sort of jog memories, but even then, nothing really came of that. And that was it. Nothing came to light, and the identity of the Christmas Tree Lady was never uncovered. Then comes the year 2022, where DNA technology had finally caught up to some of these older cases. And I recall there being a few cold cases being solved during this time because of this new technology. Now, what had happened was Othram, which is a Texas-based forensic lab, did advanced DNA testing and got a hit, a possible match to a man named David Meyer, who might be her brother. Investigators showed him the composite sketch, but think about it. He hadn't seen his sister for decades. He just wasn't sure. He didn't recognize her. So detectives then went to his sister, Annette Meyer. She took one look at the sketch and said, "That's Joyce." DNA confirmed it. After 25 years of being an unidentified mystery woman, the Christmas Tree Lady finally had her name back, Joyce Marilyn Meyer Summers. Annette later speculated that Joyce chose the children's section of the cemetery intentionally as the symbolic statement tied to her belief, shaped by her psychiatrist, that parents can cause lifelong harm to their children, which admittedly we do see a lot of today. And when calling the psychiatrist irresponsible earlier, I wasn't siding with the mother or the parents. I just think the method of just telling someone to blame a parent is irresponsible when there could have been more effective treatments to help Joyce deal with her trauma in a healthier way, if you will. But I get it. And like I said, that was way before we really focused on mental health as a society, as a culture. And that's the story of Joyce Marilyn Meyer Summers, the woman known for years as the Christmas Tree Lady. And now let's dive into Ralph vs. the Rod, where I react to your stories, experiences, situationships even, and answer your questions while doing my best to give you a fair perspective and or a little advice. As always, if you would like me to share an experience of yours, share something you find creepy or interesting, or you simply want to ask me a question, send an email to screamsocietypodcast@gmail.com, Scream Society Podcast over on Instagram, or head on over to beacons.ai/the Scream Society and click on the Society submissions link. I just revamped that entire anonymous submissions link. Please check it out. And like I said, everything remains anonymous. At the beginning of the episode, I shared this story that was sent to me. And unfortunately, it isn't as uncommon as we all might like to think. Now, just to recap, someone who does fitness content who built a solid online following, which bravo to you for doing all that. Coaching, meal plans, all of that. And eventually, because people kept asking, things shifted into more adult-leaning content that turned into OnlyFans, which then turned into boyfriend experience, tears, calls, FaceTimes, texting, the whole digital relationship deal. And I had to stop myself from getting inspired from this because I would have never thought this was a possible way to make some income. Like, imagine So anyway, this creator says that most clients were harmless except for one guy around the same age, normal looking, super polite, no red flags on the surface, but he'd buy all of the sessions out and remember tiny details that the creator didn't realize that he had shared. So he shut down that tier and sent him a message saying that it wasn't offered anymore. And suddenly this brand new account started spamming all of his posts across every platform. Then it escalated to this instance where his dog was growling at the door and someone started knocking who was wearing a bucket hat, and you were staring at the camera as this person was just knocking. And the final straw came at the gym where that same guy, the one he'd cut off, walked in acting surprised and friendly, like it was all some random coincidence, except the creator always tagged the gym in his selfies. So that's pretty much it. And would I say stalker or just a really enthusiastic fan? On a scale of 1 to 10, I would say a level 8 stalker. Like, not dangerous, but beyond annoying and creepy. And this is why I don't use maps on Snapchat. Instagram asked to start sharing my location and I declined. If I do share a location, it's a place I don't visit daily, or it's usually posted after the fact. Just throwing out some tips there. I'm not saying I'm this big, huge creator. And it really does suck that this person sucked, no pun intended, all of the fun out of it for you. And hopefully this story can inspire people out there to navigate social media more carefully. I mean, it really does suck that we have to be cautious, but that's just the world we live in. Back to the boyfriend experiences. I joked about it earlier, but why have I never heard of this? Like, let me search. Okay, boyfriend experience. BFE refers to a temporary, often short-term arrangement where a man provides the emotional and physical intimacy of a boyfriend, but without long-term commitment. Common in casual dating, online dating apps, or as a specific paid escort service where a male sex worker acts as a romantic partner for a client. Okay, I've heard of that. Boyfriend experiences can range from a fun, no strings attached fling to a transactional service, often involving romantic gestures like dates and cuddling, but potentially masking manipulative behaviors like fuckboys, or involving genuine emotional complexities. Okay, there is a whole ass website too. Boyfriendexperiences.com, not sponsored. I better not get a virus. Okay, so, this is the straight version. Women seeking a luxury boyfriend experience. Boyfriend experience. Your date will take place with a straight male companion who will treat you unbelievably. Okay, this is what I was looking for. Rates in USD. 2 hours minimum, blissful fun, $700. 5 hours, date night, $1,500. Does he pay for dinner at least? Like, evening and overnight Prince Charming, $2,500. There's Weekend Love Fest, $5,000. Full week, 5 days, honeymoon, $20,000. And then it's, please inquire for longer durations. The companions appreciate tips, but this is done solely at your discretion. And boy, if I'm giving you $20,000, the tip is included in that rate, okay? Let's move on to the questions. I'm spending too much time on this. Any new guests coming on? This is something I've been really struggling with lately. Of course, I have this list of creators I want on, and luckily in 2025, I was able to get at least 2 of them, but there are a handful more, as well as some pitches I've been getting from larger creators, which is always good. And but here's the thing with that, like, I feel, how do I say this? I don't want to lose myself or the show and change for the sake of views and streams just because I want to have this bigger creator come on and drive, streams and stuff. Like, that doesn't seem authentic to me. Let alone have someone who hasn't put in the work that I have tell me what we're going to talk about. And I give myself a lot of credit there because I have stood my ground, and the people pleaser in me has apparently died, which is amazing. Now, as for my list of creators, and some of you may even be listening, it's happening. It's just a matter of time. I'm not this self-employed little creator anymore, but it's coming, I promise. And in the meantime, though, like, if you really want to hear me interact with other creators, check out my recent collabs on Super Scary, which is a horror podcast. Josh, the host, has been great to me, and I'm super thankful that he always makes time to get me on. And who doesn't love to watch, review, and talk about different horror movies for an hour? Like, so much fun whenever I go on that podcast. And also shout out to my best friend creator in my head, Jake, over at Poison Touch, my favorite advice podcast. Those two are definitely top of my list, obviously, so definitely stay tuned. Resident Evil games ranking plus hopes for a new 9th Requiem title. Oh my gosh, yes. Hopes for the 9th game. I would have to say it needs to be in like with Resident Evil 2 remake and Resident Evil 4 remake. Like, I love the atmosphere of the Resident Evil 2 remake, and I really love the design and the controls in Resident Evil 4 remake. So I would say that's what I want to see from it. And I've also heard some rumors of them that they're going to be like allegedly killing off Leon, who is a huge character in the franchise, and I think that would be a horrible move in my opinion. So yeah, my main hope is to see Leon and that we don't see him die. Now, as for rankings, Resident Evil 4 remake, Resident Evil 2 remake, we'll do Code Veronica third, the original remake, Resident Evil 1 remake. After that, Resident Evil 6, Sue Me. Resident Evil 3 remake was fun. It just was really rushed and not as long. Resident Evil 5 is okay. It just has a lot of issues. But yeah, and then the rest are like nothing to me. And 7 and 8 can rot in hell. I just want to give a big thank you to those of you who submitted for this episode. Make sure to get those questions in ASAP. Remember to always keep it respectful and honest. And until next time, I'll scare you all on the next episode. Madam Marble, flip it around, Wicked Witch. Thank you for tuning into the Scream Society podcast. Hosted, written, produced, and edited by yours truly, Ralph Anthony. Help the society grow by subscribing on your favorite platform and leave a rating and review. I always strive for 5s. Have a horror or paranormal experience? Want me to answer your questions on the show? Submit to beacons.ai/The Scream Society. Connect with the podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Scream Society Podcast. And until next time, I'll scare you on the next episode.